Hello, my name is Hans George Campbell, and today I want to show you guys this brand new Amiga 2000 motherboard that I just got in. So let's get started. Okay, we're out of my shop now on the workbench. Let's go ahead and open this up. This is my brand new Amiga 2000 motherboard. How am I going to open it up? I don't want to cut through the cardboard and accidentally cut the board, so I got to be real careful how I open this, you know. Be real careful how this gets opened. I mean, how does he got this thing, you know, done? I mean, yeah, got to be real careful. I don't want to cut into that board. Gotta be real careful. Okay, so there's that. I'm thinking that all I have to do is just... Okay, there we go. Alrighty, so let's pull the board out. Okay, come on now. I don't want to damage this board. Anyway, there's that. Okay. Alrighty, so let's get all this padding off of here. Will it come out? Is this like, how is this in here? I mean, okay, how is this in here? I mean, what is in here? Okay, let me get a pair of scissors. I don't want to damage the board. I really don't want to damage the board with scissors or anything like that. Now, this is the new revision. This is not the old revision. God, these scissors ain't worth a crap. Let me get a better pair of scissors. Man. I'll be right back. Okay, I had to go in the house and get a better pair of scissors. Man, if those scissors are that bad, I might as well just throw them out. I don't keep tools that don't work. And, yeah, these cut real nice. Put those up there. Oh, man. Okay. So, how am I going to get this thing? Okay, I don't want to cut the board or anything like that. Just take your time, Mr. Campbell. Don't want to cut into the board or anything like that. There's that. And, okay. I think it'll come out now. Alright, throw that in the garbage. Okay. Let me, that's the bottom of the board. Here's the top, right here. But isn't she a thing of beauty? Isn't she a thing of beauty? Oh man, look at that. Is she beautiful? You know, I almost don't want to work on this. I mean, build this, to be honest with you. I'm thinking about just building a nice oak frame for it with a polycarbonate, you know, a clear plastic front, and just hang this on my wall so I can just admire it every day every morning while I'm having my coffee, you know. I mean, this thing is just, to me, it's a work of art. It's just beautiful. But look at this. It's just a thing of beauty. It really is a thing of beauty. Yeah, it's a thing of beauty. Okay. Well, that's what is referred to as the component side of the board. Okay. And we'll flip the board over. That's the solder side of the board. And like I said, I think it's just a thing of beauty. It really is a thing of beauty. Yeah. Yeah, thing of beauty. Got a little scratch there, but it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. It's a thing of beauty. Yeah. Anyway. Alrighty, let's take a look at this brand new Amiga 2000 motherboard. I think the blue color is nice. It's a Commodore color. I just wish that they would have done all of these pads here gold plating, because that would have really looked cool against this blue board. There are two versions of this board. The first version is basically an exact replica of the revision 6.2 Amiga 2000 motherboard. So it has this setup for the barrel battery and the resistor. Okay. Whereas this second version of the board, the main change that was made is this is set up for a coin battery now, a CR2032 coin battery holder. You can see the outline here that's silk screened on the board. And you just put your diode right there, and it shows you where the line of the diode should be facing. So that's pretty cool. I think that's the only difference between the two boards, you know. It appears to be the same thickness as an original Amiga 2000 motherboard. It appears to be the same thickness. You can buy all brand new parts for this board, except for one part. And that's the video hybrid chip that goes here. Every Amiga computer has this video hybrid chip. It was Commodore's way of copy protecting the Amiga computer so that no one else could build these and sell them, you know. Because no one but the Commodore engineers knows what's inside this video hybrid chip, and I don't think that information has ever been released. So without this chip, this video hybrid chip, the Amiga won't work. It has to have that video hybrid chip installed. So that's the one part that you're going to have to salvage from an existing Amiga 2000 motherboard or an Amiga 500 motherboard. But all the rest of the parts you should be able to get brand new. I'm not talking about the chips. I'm just talking about like the IC sockets and the rest of the parts that are needed to build this board. The parts that I think that are going to be very difficult to get are going to be these card edge connectors here. That's what these slots are. They're card edge connectors. That's what they are. These are going to be hard to get because most of your electronics parts warehouses, you know, they don't stock these anymore. I mean, these haven't been used in like a few decades now, and so there's no sense in keeping these stocked anymore. You know, so these are going to be hard to find. These card edge connectors, they're going to be very hard to find. Another part that's going to be hard to find are these D-sub 23-pin PCB mount connectors. These 23-pin connectors here for the video and the external floppy drive port. These are not going to be easy to find. I mean, the solder cup ones you can readily get, but these are PCB mounted versions, mount versions, and they're going to be very hard to source. Another part, believe it or not, that's going to be hard to find is the power supply connector for the Amiga 2000 power supply. This is a really odd connector. I've never even seen one on anything else except the Amiga 2000 motherboard. I know it's an older style connector that hasn't been used in a few decades, you know, so this too is going to be hard to source. But everything else, like the IC sockets and the resistors and the capacitors and the electrolytic capacitors and the diodes and things like that, the chips, you know, they should be readily available, you know. Yeah. Okay. The Amiga 2000 and the Amiga 500 are basically the same computer. Just think of the Amiga 2000 as an Amiga 500 computer, but it has a Buster chip and it has slots, you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this as if it is an Amiga 500. Build it like an Amiga 500 computer, and I'll test it as an Amiga 500 and make sure it works. And once I know that this board works as an Amiga 500, then I'll go ahead and add, you know, all these slots here, and you know, these parts, and plus the Buster chip and all that. But first, you know, I'll build it as an Amiga 500. It'll make troubleshooting a lot easier, so you have less parts to deal with. You know, I think it'll make troubleshooting a lot easier. In case, you know, I mess up on something on the Amiga 500 build, I can troubleshoot it more easily. But anyway, yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. Now, okay, I'm going to use all IC sockets, and they're going to be the high quality dual wipe contact IC sockets. Those are very high quality, and that's what I'm going to use. A word of advice: never use machined sockets for ICs, okay? Just don't do it. I mean, you're basically putting a rectangular lead into a round hole. That doesn't make any kind of sense to me, so, you know. And so it doesn't really make good contact, you know, on the chip leads. Those round holes in the machine sockets, they don't really make good contact with the leads on the integrated circuits. So my advice is don't use machined sockets for integrated circuits. Okay? Use sockets that are designed for integrated circuits, like what I'm going to use. And as I'm building this, I'll show you the type of sockets that I use, so stay tuned for that. Now, the socket for the 68,000 microprocessor, that one's 64 pin. Okay. The socket for the Fat Agnes, that one's 84 pin. Okay. And the sockets for the Denise, Paula, Gary, and Buster chip, those 4 chips, they're 48 pin sockets. And then the sockets for the 2 CIA chips and the Kickstart ROM, they're the normal 40 pin sockets. Okay. Most of the support chips, like these kind of chips here, you know, they're just regular 20 pin IC sockets. Like all of these are 20 pin sockets. These 2 chips up here are 20 pin sockets, and these 6 here are 20 pin sockets. So most of the support ICs are 20 pin sockets. Okay. When building this Amiga 2000 motherboard, you do not have to install everything on the board. Just install the things that you're actually going to use. And what I mean by that, if you're not ever going to install a bridge board or use a bridge board, okay, because you already have you built yourself a legacy PC, so you don't really need a bridge board. Okay, you built yourself a legacy PC, you can play any of the DOS games you want, so you'll never install a bridge board into your Amiga 2000. If that's the case, then you do not need to install all of these parts here. You can leave them off the board. And the rest of the Amiga 2000 motherboard will work just fine. And that's less parts that you have to source and less work that you have to do, because you're not soldering on all of this. Okay? And also, it's been my experience that, you know, you only use up to 3 Zorro 2 slots. In fact, most of the time, I only use 2. Okay? So don't install the Zorro 2 slots that you're never going to use, and that includes these capacitors here. They don't need to be installed because you're not going to use them. Okay, you still got to install all of this right here. Okay, but yeah, my recommendation is only install or solder in 3 of these Zorro 2 slots, and plus these 2 capacitors right there. You know, of course, you want to install your processor slot. Okay, and you want to install your video slot. Okay. Are you going to use the serial port? When's the last time any of us have actually used the serial port? I haven't used the serial port in decades, believe it or not. So if you're not going to use the serial port, don't solder all this stuff on it, including the parts that are associated with the serial port. You don't need to solder any of that on. You don't need to install any of that if you're not going to use the serial port. Okay? The Amiga 2000 is designed to use up to 2 disk drives internally. And in all the years that I've used Amiga 2000 computers, I have never once used the external floppy drive except for the AMAX emulator, Macintosh emulator. That's the only time I ever used this external floppy disk port. And I have real Macintosh computers, so I'm not going to be emulating the Macintosh anymore on an Amiga 2000. So there's no need to solder on these parts. Okay? Who uses this monochrome video crap? I don't. Now, I'm pretty sure none of you do either, so there's no need to solder that part on. Okay? Just solder on your right and left audio jacks. You are going to need audio out. Okay? And again, okay, if you're not going to use the parallel port, in other words, if you're not going to be digitizing with DigiView or hooking something up to the parallel port, then you don't need to solder that on either, or any of these parts here. You can leave all this stuff unsoldered, except for your audio ports. Okay? And the same thing, believe it or not, for your video port and these parts that are associated with it. Because as long as you have this video slot here, and you've plugged in a Commodore A2320 flicker fixer scan doubler board, you don't even use this connector right here. Okay? And then I have a Picasso 2 board plugged into one of the Zorro slots, so yeah. You don't have to source or solder in these 4 connectors, or any of these parts here, all these little parts here that are connected to those connectors. Only solder on, only install what you plan to use on the board. Make things easier for yourself. You don't have to build the whole board, unless you want to. That's up to you. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. You don't have to build the whole board. The guy that made this board, I'm hoping that he does more of these. But I'm hoping in the next revision that he makes it to where you can have an either-or situation on your memory here. You can either have all 8 memory chips plugged in, your 44 256s for 1 megabyte of chip RAM, okay? Or you can leave the memory off of here and plug in your 4 higher density memory in these sockets. I believe they're 4 megabyte by 1, excuse me, 1 megabyte by 4 bit. So 2 of them makes 1 megabyte. So 4 of them will make 2 megabytes. And there's your 2 megabytes of chip memory. And just have jumpers over here where you can jumper which configuration you're using. Okay? Like if you plan on having 2 megabytes of chip memory installed, then you jumper in that extra address line that hooks, I think there's 2 resistors. One goes to one of the IC sockets down here, and another resistor goes to 5 volts, I believe is how it's set up. He can have it jumper. He can have that already pre-wired within the board itself, so that you don't have to do any of that. You just jumper it. And the jumper can say like 1 megabyte chip RAM, 2 megabyte chip RAM. Okay? And then if you find those rare chips and you plug them in here, you'll have 2 megabytes of chip memory. Just make sure you plug in the same Agnes chip, the 2 meg Agnes chip, that is in the Amiga 3000. Okay? And yeah. And then you'd have like an Amiga 2000 plus motherboard. Just like there's an Amiga 500 plus, motherboard, you'd have an Amiga 2000 plus motherboard. And I think that is a really good idea. And I'm hoping that the guy that does these boards, that he watches this video and he too thinks that, you know what, that is actually a good idea. I think I'll look into that, redesigning this chip memory area right here to make it to where you can have either 1 megabyte of chip memory or 2 megabytes of chip memory, and just have it where you just jumper between the two, And I think that would be a good idea. And another thing you can do is those DRAMs, those 1 meg by 4 bit DRAMs are very hard to find today. They're almost impossible to find. Okay, you can have it to where just these 4 locations here are set up for surface mount DRAMs, because those are readily available. And then a person can just solder in those 4 surface mount. I think they're J-lead DRAMs, the 1 megabyte by 4 bit DRAMs. They can just solder them in right here. Okay, and or they can solder in the surface mount versions of the 44 256 RAMs. It's just whatever they want to solder in here. I think most people are going to want to have 2 megabytes chip memory on the board itself. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it for this video. I just wanted to show you my new blue Amiga 2000 motherboard that I bought. I think it's really cool, and like I said before, I think it's beautiful. I think it's a work of art, and I'm going to be building this one. And as I'm building it, I'm going to be recording, you know, each session. There'll be 1-hour build sessions, and I'll be recording them under the camera, so you guys get to watch me build this board step by step. You know, so stay tuned for those videos. But anyway, my name is Hans George Campbell, and until next time.